Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Jim Weiss, and I have a very special guest, Deborah Duncan. She's the host to Great Day Houston, and she's also a network news journalist for many, many years. She's interviewed some of the most famous celebrities and important newsworthy stories. And today we're going to hear about the top 5 interviews that she's had, what shocked her and surprised her. Good afternoon, Deborah. How are you doing this
Hi. Oh my
afternoon?
gosh. You're like you said top 5 interviews. I'm like, yikes. Because there's like a category of like 5,000 top 5 interviews. We'll randomly grab 5 that you asked about and we'll get it done.
Okay. Elie Weisel, tell me about your interview with him and about his book night. What shocked or surprised, impressed you?
Yeah, wow. Okay, so the first book that I ever really connected with, I mean, all of us as kids, Sally, Dick, and Jane and Old Yeller and stuff like that. But I was in 6th grade, and required reading in 6th grade was the book Night by Elie Weisel. I wasn't prepared for it, but I'm so glad that I read it. And as people know, it was his memoir of actually going through the Holocaust from before everything went crazy to being in the concentration camp and being there with his father. And I just remember thinking as a little kid, I can't believe that people can be so cruel. We've come so far in so many different ways, but that primal part of our brain still doesn't get it. And so it changed me as a child in that I always vowed to treat people better, to be able to understand people who are different than me. And I kind of had some of that in me anyway, because I was a kid who was a military brat, affectionately called a military brat. I had traveled a lot and started my life in Taipei, Taiwan. My dad was in the United States Air Force. But reading that book really made it real for me. So fast forward several years later, I'm working at Good Morning Texas in Dallas. And I remember them saying, oh, well, there's this person who's going to come on. He's in town for some event. Ellie. I looked at the name and went, oh my God, Elie Weisel. I was like, wow. All right. So he came on the show and we reiterated that message that, we hear it so many times. Those who don't learn from their history doomed to repeat it. All those different things about we got to treat each other better. And here we are today in the midst of it again.
How relevant for today? Yeah, same
Yeah.
same problem. We have to learn to treat each other kindly and peacefully as much as possible.
Yeah.
So that's an amazing person to interview. You're very lucky.
Yeah.
And speaking of luck, you also interviewed some other stellar people like Oprah. What
Yeah.
shocked and
Oprah.
surprised you about her?
And I wouldn't say so much that surprised me about her, but because one of the things that Oprah, how she became famous, is that she came across on the TV like she was our favorite auntie, our favorite sister, our favorite friend, right? So she's just like a normal gal who happens to be a billionaire. But anyway,
2.5
was,
billion.
yeah, right. Oh, geez, wow. Okay, so I interviewed her several times, but one time in particular, I remember we had limited time on the set because she was doing multiple interviews, and I sat down. I said, Oprah, I said, listen, I just want to tell you, there's 2 questions I'm going to ask you that have a lot of answers to them. So in the interest of time, let me tell you what they are. And she looked at me and went, Debbie, Debbie, I've been asked every question there is 100,000 times. You don't need to prompt me. And I said, okay. I said, you're right. Right. And then I felt like, oh,
Wait,
I
can you
can't
do
believe I
that
did that.
accent again? Can you do Oprah's accent? You sort of sound like her a little.
Bad accent. But so the first question I asked her, I said, what was the very first moment that you realized how important and impactful this medium we call television is and how important you are in it? And she went, turn the cameras off. So they turned the cameras off, and then what I was afraid was going to happen happened. She has 5 billion answers to that, right? And it's kind of like this traffic jam in her brain. I'm thinking, is it when you did the Angel Network and kids brought in change and it turned into millions of dollars? Is it when you talked about a book that no one knew about, and the very next day it was on the bestsellers list? Is it when you talked about the beef industry and that whole thing blew up? So many different things that she did that people took notice right away. And the answer she gave me is one that a lot of people will go, what? But if you think about it, it's the most powerful answer, and it's the reason why she became what she became. She said, turn the cameras back on. So they turned the cameras back on, and she said, I realized how important this medium we call television is and how important I was in it. When a woman stopped me in the grocery store, this is probably back when she was still grocery shopping, because I did ask her the very first time she realized, she said a woman stopped her in the grocery store and said, I watch you every day. And so you stop and you think, wait a minute, that is the crux of it all. When someone stops down their day, whatever it is that they have to do to make a point, to make an appointment with you, to watch your show, that's pretty amazing, because that is the basis of how you can get your message across, is when someone takes time to hear it.
Amazing. So we're in Texas. Your show's in Texas. G.W. Bush and his mom. What was that interview all about?
He was running for governor, and if you remember at the time, he was running against Ann Richards, who was super strong. And so a lot of people were like, wait, you're the president's son is going to run against Ann Richards for governor. And this is one of those cases, you know how politics goes. Some people will argue that Ann may have lost the election herself, right? Because it was an interesting dynamic, but she was like, poor George, born with a silver spoon in his mouth. One thing GW had the ability to do was come across as kind of like your favorite buddy in college, or your favorite uncle, or your favorite big brother. And we had a rule on the show when you came on to Good Morning Texas, and I've done that with Great Day Houston as well. If you're a politician running for office, when you come on the show, you can talk about everything except for politics. And what's interesting is you see how people, you know, come across certain challenges they had in life, different things that they did in life, and you can take those things that they did and see how they would apply it to leadership, or running a country, right, or running a state. So then what we did was Anne had to come on with her mother, and George had to come on with his mom, First Lady Barbara Bush. So they came on the show, and watching that dynamic was so sweet and so genuine. And so was Anne, by the way, and her mom. In fact, when Anne came in that morning, she said, I wasn't sure if my mom was going to make it. She was up on my roof trying to tell me what I needed to do to fix some things. So I'm like, Anne's mom, I don't know how old she was at that time, but Anne's mom was like 150, and she's still up on the roof going, honey, you need to get this fixed, right? And then Barbara came on, and George, it was a surprise, which I'm not quite sure how much that was a surprise, but it's supposed to be a surprise when she came walking out. Because I asked GW, I said, okay, so what kind of kid were you? If you went back to your third grade class and asked kids, hey, you know George W. Bush, you know he's going to run for governor, how many kids would go, yeah, that's probably right? Or how many kids would say, what, GW, right? So anyway, First Lady Barbara Bush came walking out in the middle of it, and she goes, oh my gosh, he was an ornery little kid. And they were going back and forth, and he goes, what happened to you this morning? Did you stick your finger in an electric socket? What happened to your hair? And they were going back and forth. But you saw a different relationship between a mother and a son.
Right.
And, you know, I think that's one of the things in politics that we always have to remember, is people who are representing us in whatever office it is, the very first thing they are is human beings. Right. You know, the hard part is when politics gets involved, but the very first thing they are is human beings.
Right. Very sweet.
Someone's son, someone's husband, someone's, you know, brother, whatever. But it was nice to see that other side of him.
Well, you mentioned to me about a heartfelt story that you were involved with a 5-year-old heart recipient. Heart. Can you share your wisdom?
Yeah. People oftentimes say, you know, what was the best interview you've ever done? And I really can't tell you, because there are so many different interviews for different reasons. You know, as I mentioned earlier, how Elie Weisel, for personal reasons for me, I connected with that story, and it's just such an important human story. But with this young lady, it is too. She was a 5-year-old little girl, and she was coming on the show as part of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And all she wanted was new furniture for her family, because she said they had sold everything because of her heart issues. And, you know, I love looking at this little girl who's not thinking about what she can get, but she was thinking about what she could do for her family. And while they were on the show, I said to her, I said, look at the monitor, because your wish is coming true. And Mattress Mac, who a lot of us, you know,
I was thinking that, but I didn't want to say anything in case it wasn't him.
Yeah, yeah, it was him. It was him. But a lot of us know him in this area as just having the biggest philanthropic heart. And so when they looked at the monitor, they saw that their entire apartment was being completely refurnished, dining room
Wow.
furniture, bedroom furniture, everything. And Matt just back was so funny. He was like, "That's right, buy today, have it delivered tonight." And I'm like, "Well, have it delivered right now, right?"
No back
And so
slips, no back orders.
it was it was super cool. And she was so excited. And they left the show that day, and we were like, great that they got the furniture and her wish was granted, but we knew that she was on limited time, and weren't sure she's going to make it. And then the father called us shortly after they left the show and said, "We got a page, there's a heart." And of
Wow.
course, the crazy thing, whenever there's a heart to be donated, you know that somebody else lost their life. And in this case, it was another child. um, it was tough. So a few months later, we were having them back on the show to see how she was doing. And we reached out to the family whose son had passed away. And we wanted to give them the opportunity to meet this little girl and her family. And they were very upset with us, understandably so. We took a chance on doing that. But I know that my parents, when my brother was killed by a drunk driver, my parents got that phone call as well, and they weren't prepared for it. And it took them a minute to get through that, to realize that one of the most, I guess, heroic things they could do in honor of my brother's life is to make sure that somebody else could continue their life. So she came on the show, and the mom of the other little boy was, as I mentioned, was very upset that we had called her. But while I was interviewing the recipient of the heart and her parents, my executive producer gets in my ear and says, "She's here. Look at the camera and nod. Do you want her to come on, or what would you like us to do?" And I thought, however she reacts, we have to honor. Even if she was upset with us, we'd have to honor that. And I would, if she was upset with us, I would go into the explanation of, this is why it's so important to talk about organ donation before something happens, so that you don't have that kind of, it's hard to work through all of that. Instead, she came on and she was in tears, and she saw this little girl. She saw what her son had done in death and what it did for this girl to have life. And that little girl, I'm telling you, not a dry eye in the house, because she looked at that woman and told her that she loved her, even though she didn't know her. And anytime she wanted to visit her son, all she had to do was come, and she put her hand over her heart. And this is your child. It was a chance for her to see that her son was not coming back, but what her son did
What
was
an
amazing. And that
impact.
was just
Yeah.
one organ, right? There were so many other people who benefited from that as well.
And Deborah, you do a lot too for your community. I'm just plugging you right now.
Well,
Last question.
okay. Well, thank you. I love that.
You do. Inquiring minds want to know about some of the celebrities, since we only have time for one more, or whoever you want, a basket of celebrities. What surprised you, or what kind of stories would you like to share about some of your celebrities, some of your
The
best
basket of
stories?
celebrities. You know what? I think we all put celebrities in kind of like on this pedestal, this certain spot, and we think they are perfection, and they may be great at what they do. But at the end of the day, I always love every celebrity that I've met, is that you see that they're just like the rest of us. They just had a job where we could see what it is they were doing. And I love Julie Andrews, is amazing, but she talked about, I took the job in the early days because I had to. My dad struggled and my family struggled. I was going to do whatever I could do. James Earl Jones talked about the fact that he had a huge stuttering problem, and this man has like one of the most recognizable voices in the world, Darth Vader, and this is CNN, and the whole bit. I love when I talk to a lot of celebrities, they're in town for something, a concert or a new movie or a new book or whatever. And I get that in there. But what I like to talk to them about is, we always know where someone is. I want to know how you got there, because the story of how you got there is relatable to so many of us, and sometimes it's, there, but by the grace of God, there go I. And other times you realize what you perceived as a failure really was your detour in life to take you where it is that you are right now. So with almost every celebrity I've interviewed, I love hearing about the normalness of them, the commonness of them, because it makes you realize, that they're no one special. They're just good at what they do, and we can see the most of the time they don't feel that way. They don't feel like they deserve anything extra. They just are thankful for the fact that we think they're extra.
The humanity is
Mhm.
the most important thing.
Yeah, Garth Brooks, Trisha Yearwood could not be a nicer couple. The sweetest people ever.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Deborah. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us and sharing your stories with us. I think
You're welcome. Tell
the
Bodhi I
audience
said
will
hi.
really love it. Yeah, my cat
Bodhi, I
says
said
hi
hi.
back to you. She
Bodhi,
will.
by the way, for people at home going, who's Bodhi? That's Jim's cat. It's really like a human cat though. Has a
Right.
good personality. I'm gonna interview Bodhi next.
And she's a Siberian cat, so we're trying to get along, the Russians and the American people
Oh,
trying
stop.
to get along as well.
We can do it with pets because pets don't have
That's
that kind
right.
of judgment, right?
Right. She's awesome. She's amazing. So
Uh,
thanks a lot for letting me interview you, and have a great night and enjoy the rest of your week coming up.
all right. Bye.
Bye-bye.